If you'd like to sponsor an episode or donate to our food services program, please visit us on the web at www.philormh.org/Chef Jared. Good afternoon, and welcome to today's episode of Served with Love. I'm your host, Chef Jared Johnson. We'd like to give a special thanks to Brandywine Realty Trust for sponsoring today's episode. The sponsorship of today's episode goes a long way towards feeding our families and providing our food service program with all of the ingredients we need to take care of our families here at the house. If you would like to sponsor an episode or donate food to our program, please see our website. Today's episode is going to be on chicken stock. So on today's episode, we're going to focus in on chicken stock. Stocks are very important, and it's a key ingredient to a lot of the things that we do here in the house. Stocks are important to us because they are the essence of the ingredients that we like to use, and they really are the foundation for a lot of the recipes that we build. And you can make stocks from a variety of different things. You can make chicken stock, you can make vegetable stock, beef stock, or veal stock, seafood stock. But today we're going to focus in on chicken stock, probably because it's the most versatile stock that we use here at the house when we're not using it for a vegetarian application. I'd like to give a special thanks today to Earl Kaiser of Kaiser's Pheasantry for donating the chicken that we're going to use today to make our stock. And we are also going to do a pan-seared chicken breast dish today. And I'm going to break this chicken down and show you how we build the stock to be able to do some Airline chicken breast. All right, so we have our chicken broken down here, and now what you want to do is make sure you have your oven preheated to 375 degrees. I like to roast the chicken parts before I put them in the stock, and it gives a little bit of a better foundation of flavor. So we're just going to put these in for about 40 minutes and just let them roast in there. And what I have over here are some chicken parts that we've already roasted off. And so what you want to do, once you have the chicken done, you can see this beautiful golden brown color. That's going to add so much flavor to our stock. We're going to get all of this in there. We're even going to get as much of the juice and everything that's on the sheet tray into the pot. But you want to hold on to this sheet tray because the next stage are vegetables. So while your chicken is in the oven, we're going to take some vegetables now. The vegetables, or what we call a mirepoix, is the essence of what is going to add the flavor in addition to the chicken into your stock. So we're going to start with onions, carrots, and celery. The onions and carrots and celery have already been washed, but we don't want to peel them. We want to use every part of the onion. So we're just going to give a rough chop. We're going to use everything here. Because I already had my chicken done, I'm going to go right back on the board, on the sheet tray that the chicken came from. You just need to get them broken down so everything will cook relatively easily. We're going to be roasting these in the oven for a few minutes. Again, that builds flavor and helps bring out all of the essence of the stock. So now we're going to take a couple carrots. They've already been washed, but we're going to use the peels, the ends, stem, every part of it. And then celery. Stems, ends, leaves, every part. If you've ever seen really good chicken stock, a lot of times it has a great gold color. And that comes from the onion peels. The onion peels are a great pigment provider to your chicken stock to make it not only taste good, but also look really good. And we're going to put these in the oven, 375 for about 15 minutes. In addition to the roasted vegetables that are going to go into the stock, we also like to use aromatics. And the aromatics are going to just help build some complexity in the stock and give it a real well-balanced flavor. The aromatics we're using today are fresh parsley, we have some fresh sage, some fresh thyme, black peppercorns, a little bit of crushed red pepper, shallots, garlic, bay leaves, and leeks. So we're going to just halve these shallots and go in there, skin, cores, peels, everything goes right in the pot. For the garlic, we're going to do about 6 cloves of garlic. So you just separate them. You're just going to give them a quick crush with the back of the knife. Everything goes in the pot. We're going to use 2 bay leaves. We're going to do about 12 to 15 peppercorns. I like to do just a pinch of crushed red pepper. This is optional. It's not going to make it spicy, but if you want to leave it out, leave it out. I do about 10 sprigs of parsley. Nothing fancy here. You don't even have to cut it. Just put it right in. About 10 sprigs of thyme. Maybe I'll do about 5 sprigs of sage. Sage can be kind of strong. So we have most of our aromatics in, and when you're using leeks as your aromatic, you want to do that last. The reason being, this leek has already been washed, but even though this has been washed, leeks grow in really sandy, dirty soil. And so you want to make sure after you cut it that you're rinsing it in cold, clean water before you put it into the stock. So you want to make sure that any sediment or dirt that's inside the leek doesn't go into your stock. So we're going to go down to about the cluster where they start to form. We're going to cut them off. We're going to cut off the end. And then we're going to cut this in half lengthwise. Lay it down flat. And then from here you just cut straight down. And I can already see there's a little bit of dirt and sediment on my cutting board from this leek. So I have a bowl of nice clean water here. So we're going to drop our leeks into the water, and you're going to want to make sure you separate. So whenever you're working with leeks, you want to make sure that you really give them a good rinse and clean. So there, our leeks are nice and clean now. And so you want to use a lot of water in a deep bowl, because you're just going to take the leeks off the top of the water. All of that dirt and sediment has gone down to the bottom. And the leeks can go in with the rest of the chicken and your aromatics. So just about everything is in the pot now. Our vegetables have been in the oven for about 15 minutes. We're going to pull them out, throw them in the pot, cover everything with cold water, and we're going to get our stock going. These vegetables look great. Beautiful roast in our ovens. Thanks so much to Almo for supplying our ovens here in the family kitchen and some of our other major appliances. This family kitchen has really been useful for not just us doing this show, but also our families who like to cook their own meals at night. So all the vegetables go in. So now we have vegetables in, aromatics in, chicken is in. Now we're just going to cover everything with cold water. I have 2 gallons of cold water right here. Everything is covered. We're going to turn this on high heat. And we're just going to let that go. Let it come up to a boil. Once it comes up to a boil, we're going to turn it down to a gentle simmer. You don't want this to cook very hard. When it's simmering the right way, it's going to release 2 or 3 marble-side bubbles kind of at the same time, and really no more than that. If you're seeing a lot more bubbles than that, that means you're simmering too hard and you need to turn the temperature down. And so we're going to let this go for about 6 to 8 hours at that super low simmer. And what that's going to do, it's going to break down everything that's in the pot and really get us the good consistency that we're looking for and get all of the essence and flavor out of everything that's in the pot. Okay, so I started a stock earlier this morning. So we have the stock going that we just did. That's going to come up and we're going to let that go for about 6 to 8 hours. But we have one that we've already done that's been simmering for about 6 to 8 hours. If you can see here, inside the pot are those little bubbles that I was talking about. This is at its lowest setting right now, and it's just releasing these tiny little bubbles up to the surface. I like to call these happy bubbles. And these happy bubbles come up to the surface, and they're just letting you know, they're massaging everything, letting you know that the end result is going to be just the way you want it. So this has been on for about 6 to 8 hours. Our happy bubbles are doing their job. So now we can turn this off of the heat and start to strain this. So I have a little wand here, and what you do is you just get a colander and a stainless steel bowl, and you want to start to get all of your chunky ingredients out of the stock. And by using the colander, everything can strain through. So I do this until I get all of the chunkies that I can easily get with the wand out of the pot. Once you've gotten all of the chunkies out, then you can take your pot and pour it directly through this fine mesh strainer into another container that can catch the stock. But this is piping hot right now, and so we're going to let this cool off. We're not going to strain it right now. I'm just going to kind of talk to you a little bit about how we do it. You don't want to pour super hot stock through a fine mesh strainer in your kitchen. You're working with a lot of liquid, very hot. You don't want to make a big mess, and you certainly don't want to burn yourself. So you let this cool off probably close to room temperature, really, before you start to pour it through the fine mesh strainer. And then once you pour it through the fine mesh strainer and you have your vegetables that have been dripping with your colander, you can then pour whatever stock that has accumulated in the bottom of your pot also through your fine mesh strainer to go with the rest of the stock that you have. Once you have that done, you're going to put it in the refrigerator overnight. The benefit of putting it in the refrigerator overnight is any fat and oils that are in the stock will come up to the top and they'll harden over the top of your stock overnight. And it'll be very easy for you the next day just to remove the fat off of the top, because we want to make sure that you're not reintroducing that fat into the dish in areas where you don't want fat to be. What you're left with is this beautiful, velvety, smooth, golden chicken stock. And you can see the consistency that it has. I've heated it up a little bit because we're going to use this in a dish in a few minutes. But the consistency that it has is like velvet. And this is what really adds to the great texture in soups, sauces, and stews. Okay, so now we have our stock all done, and we're going to talk about building a recipe and using stock to build the recipe. Before I do that, I just want to mention a couple of things about the stock. First thing, after you've reserved your stock, I like to put it on the stovetop and just kind of bring it up to temperature, maybe bring it up to a boil for a minute or a simmer for a minute before I start to use it, just because it makes for a better consistency in the stock. Also, when you're packaging your stock will last for 3 to 5 days in the refrigerator, and I like to use quart-sized containers to package the stock, and you can either put them in the refrigerator or you can put them in the freezer for you to use whenever you're ready. So these little quart-sized containers are great for storing your stock. So now I have these Airline chicken breasts that we have from Kaiser's Pheasantry. Beautiful free-range chicken breasts. We're getting our pan nice and hot, and we're going to do the pan-seared chicken breast today, and then we're going to make a little lemon butter sauce with our homemade stock to go with our pan-seared chicken breasts. So these chicken breasts are really beautiful from a free-range farm. I really like to say, if anybody has access to a farm or they're growing livestock, know people who have a farm and are interested in donating product to the house or donating product for the show, donating product for our families, please check us out at our website. So we have our pan nice and hot. We're going to add a little bit of oil in the pan. This is an 11-inch pan. We're going to do 2 breasts at once. I recommend doing 2 breasts at a time. You're not going to want to do 4 breasts unless you have a much larger pan and have a very hot burner. But this is nice and hot, just the way we want it. So we're going to take our tongs now and go skin side down right in the pan. And what that's going to do, it's going to form a really nice crust right on the skin. While that's down, we'll season the other side. Got to make sure it tastes good. This is going to get a nice golden brown crust on the edge and be tender and juicy on the inside. You don't want to mess with the chicken too much. You don't want to be moving it around because you want to make sure you get that really good sear and crispiness to your skin. So if you can see in the pan here, there's some white edges starting to form around the edge. Some of the temperature is starting to climb up. This chicken is just about ready to flip. So we're going to flip our chicken now. You see that golden brown crust that we're looking for on the skin? Oh yeah, look at that. Terrific. So the chicken's been in for about 30 seconds on the other side. We're just going to turn off the heat now and put it in our oven. The oven is set at 375 degrees. And we're going to let that finish the rest of the way in the oven. We want to make sure that when you're going from stovetop to oven, that your pot or pan that you're using is oven ready. You don't want to use something with a rubber handle or something that can't go into the oven that can either crack or melt or damage the product. So just make sure that when you're going from stovetop to oven, that your pan can handle the heat from going stovetop to oven. If you can't, use something like a sheet tray and just put the chicken on the sheet tray and then put the chicken in the oven to finish the job. You can still make the pan sauce in the pan the way that I'm going to show you. So while our chicken is finishing up in the oven, we're going to prep a little side dish to go with the chicken. So I have some field greens here, a little bit of spring mix, and some fresh herbs from the garden, a little bit of basil, a little bit of fresh parsley in here. And we're going to make just a very simple field greens and tomatoes with a simple vinegar and oil dressing. So I have some heirloom tomatoes here. We're just going to slice these heirloom tomatoes in half. Give a nice variety of color, some green, some yellow, some red. I think 2 more will do it. All right, so now we have some salad greens and tomatoes. We're going to take a little sherry vinegar. Just give a little drizzle of sherry vinegar over our greens. A little drizzle of olive oil. Some salt. A couple cracks of pepper. We're just going to give this a quick toss. All right, so now our greens and tomatoes are finished and nice and dressed, well seasoned. We're just going to pop these in the fridge for a second until our chicken is ready, and then we're going to plate it all up. So our chicken's been in the oven for about 5 minutes. I'm going to pull the chicken out. Oh, look at that. Awesome. USDA says we want to cook our chicken to about 165 degrees internal temperature. But we're going to pull this chicken out at about 150, 155 degrees because it's going to rest for a little bit of time here while we make our pan sauce before we serve it, and it'll finish cooking on this little side dish the rest of the way. So now we're going to finish our pan sauce here in the pan. So we have some garlic and shallots. We're going to add them right to the pan. A little salt and pepper. And you just want to kind of move them around with all of the little goodies that were in the pan that kind of came off of the chicken as we were cooking it. You don't want to cook the shallots and garlic for a long time. You just want to start to release the oils and the flavor, get a little color on them. And then we're going to do something called deglazing the pan that we're going to use our stock for. So our garlic and shallots are ready to go there. And so we're going to take about a cup of our really good homemade chicken stock and put that right in the bottom of the pan. It's going to come up to a hard boil like that. And you want that to kind of boil hard because we're going to cook this down by about 2/3. Get a lot of the extra liquid of the chicken stock out, but all of the good essence and flavor from the mirepoix and the chicken kind of to reduce down with our garlic and shallots. And so while that's working, we're going to get some herbs ready to go with the sauce. We have some chives from our garden here. So we're going to do a little slice of chive. We're also going to add a little bit of fresh parsley. I think that's about enough chive. You can see, can you see inside the pan here? There's like big bubbles going from the boiling, and that's also kind of helping to move everything around and help everything come together. Those little boil bubbles will help you out. We're going to take a little fresh parsley here. Give that a rough chop. It's going to take about 3 minutes in our pan for the sauce to finish. Okay, so we have our parsley ready. We have our chives ready. Sauce is just about there. We're going to let that evaporate just a little bit more, and then we're going to finish it with our herbs and butter. Okay, so most of our liquid has evaporated out. We have our pan sauce right where we wanted. I'm going to take just the juice of 1 lemon right here and add that into the sauce. You want to use your hand like this to try to catch the seeds as you squeeze the lemon. Actually, I think I'm just going to use the juice of half a lemon. This was a really juicy lemon. Let that work in. Look at that. Now we're going to add our chives and our parsley. And we're going to add a couple pats of butter. And again, those bubbles in the pan are going to help stir everything through. And you can see as I'm swirling it around in the pan here, as the butter's melting down, the sauce is thickening up. And that butter, as we melt the butter in, it's an emulsifier. An emulsifier is something that's a thickener. And so the combination of the velvety stock that had the collagen in it and the butter comes together and makes a really beautiful finished sauce. Thank you so much for the Steinberg Center for donating butter and cheeses and some dairy recently. Butter's melted in and our sauce has just about come together. So now I'm just going to give it a little taste, make sure it's right. Oh my God, that is so good. Tiny little bit of salt, and that's going to be ready. So to finish that up, take one of our chicken breasts. And what I like to do is just put a couple of thin slices in the chicken breast on an angle. So you're starting at the bottom of the chicken and working toward the wingette. We're just going to put thin slices through the chicken. Depending on the size of the chicken, I put 2 or 3 slices, just so it separates a little bit. Beautiful. Again, I go in on an angle. This piece is a little bit thicker. Oh, it's so juicy. So we're going to put 3 slices in this one. And then we take our pan sauce. We just spoon that right over the chicken. Then we have our salad that we finished earlier. Just give that another quick toss. Salad greens on the plate. And then I like to finish that with just a little bit of toasted sunflower seed. So there you have it, pan-seared chicken breast with our homemade stock used to make a pan sauce that has a little bit of butter, fresh herbs, lemon, shallots, and garlic. So we're very excited today to have Sienna and Julie with us, who are going to taste our pan-seared chicken breasts and enjoy a nice lunch here today in our family kitchen.
Thank you, Chef Jared.
My pleasure. Enjoy.
Looks amazing, as usual.
So again, I just wanted to say thank you so much to Brandywine Realty Trust for sponsoring this episode today. And what they've been doing recently has been very helpful for us as we've been making all the meals for the families. They've partnered with some local restaurants and have helped to have some food delivered here for us when we don't have catered food in the house. And so thank you so much to Brandywine Realty Trust for taking care of us and also spreading the community love around, making sure that we're taking care of our families.
And thank you, Chef Jared, for another meal served with love.
Awesome. That's great. And so that's this week's episode of Served with Love. Stay tuned for next week's episode where we're going to be doing boiling, blanching, and braising and going to make some really delicious Italian-style pulled pork sandwiches with broccoli rabe. This episode of Served with Love was sponsored by Brandywine Realty Trust. We'd also like to thank the following companies for their support. Almo Corporation, who donated our ovens and large appliances for our family kitchen. Kaiser's Pheasantry, who donated whole ethically raised chickens for our families. And the University of Pennsylvania Steinberg Conference Center, who donated top quality dairy, including the butter that we used on today's program. For ingredients and more information on how you can support our food services program, please visit us on the web at www.philarmh.org/chefjared. You can also contact me with any questions by email at chefjared@philarmh.org. Thank you.